And even the Diamond Brothers, who are of course heretics, as I mentioned in my podcast episode about baptism and desire, they're Feniate heretics. There are several channels, I think two channels I saw that seem to be associated with them that address the question of the morality of watching. I think the guy JRR Tolkien, he is the Lord of the Rings guy, right? I think he's the one who did Lord of the Rings. I believe so. The question they address the morality of watching Lord of the Rings, Batman, Dragon Ball, Spider-Man, all this stuff, right? They made videos about these things. Basically, how Catholics can or should enjoy these forms of media and the things wrong with them and all those kind of things. I've watched a bunch of those videos. I've watched all that I've seen online. You know, the one about JRR Tolkien. There's one about, Dragon Ball and Spider-Man and all that stuff. I've watched those videos. And not once, not one time, not once in any of those videos was the Legion of Decency mentioned, was Pius the 11th mentioned, or Pius the 12th mentioned. And it disappoints me. Hold on. It disappoints me because the Diamond Brothers seem to pride themselves. I don't mean pride in necessarily a sinful way. I'm not accusing them of sin, but I mean pride themselves as far as like they seem to almost advertise themselves as being very well researched, very well read as far as Catholic literature goes. So it disappoints me that people associated with them, as far as I can see, have addressed the question of how Catholics should or can't watch or can watch or whatever modern media, and no mention was made of the Legion of Decency, of Pius XI, or Pius XII. That is very disappointing. Because I'd like to know, have they never heard of Legion of Decency? Have they never seen Vigilante Cura by Pius XI? Have they never seen Miranda Procis by Pius XII? I'm very confused about that. So, in the JRR Tolkien video, I believe, the guy who seems to be associated with the Diamond Brothers said that a Catholic shouldn't read fairy stories or something like that. And I think by a fairy story he meant perhaps like a story that involves, magic or something like that. I think. Not 100% sure.
JRR Tolkien was completely obsessed with fairy stories. Most of Tolkien's books are satanic fantasy novels. JRR Tolkien replaced Jesus Christ with such stories. For entertainment, a true Catholic must never read any books, watch any movies, play any games, or listen to any music that has magic, occult, or fairy story themes.
But I brought it up not because of specifically that statement in of itself, but my problem is, as someone professing to be a Catholic, let alone professing to be a traditional Catholic, you shouldn't be making statements about what a Catholic can or can't lawfully watch without addressing and referencing church authority on that subject. You can't just be out here just make up your own opinions, man. Because I think when I first saw those videos by the Diamond Brothers associate, whoever, if he is associated with them, I basically, took it to be, oh, this is what a Catholic is supposed to think, about these things. But the Legion of Decency doesn't seem to go that direction at all. Just because a show has magic in it, or has a magician as a main character or whatever, doesn't automatically mean it's condemned. You understand? And so, when addressing those kinds of questions, church authority needs to be referenced. And I've noticed, as those from my podcast channel may be kind of noticing as well, within the realm of quote unquote traditional Catholics and sedevacantists and stuff like that, there's a lot of lack of respect, I feel, for church authority. And I mean, to be a Feeneyite or an indifferentist or anything like that, you have to have some lack of respect for church authority because you're teaching heresy, right? And you're basically picking and choosing what you want to believe. You're like, okay, so Pius XI said this, but that's heresy. Okay, no, I won't believe that. No, that's the church. That's what the church teaches, you know. And I feel like, especially with Feeneyism, with that specific heresy, there is such a sweeping disrespect for church authority and church teaching that there is a lack of the understanding of the importance of backing up one's opinions and claims and everything with church authority. Okay? Because if this person had seen the Legion of Decency's ratings about movies like Aladdin, okay, Aladdin wasn't condemned by the Legion of Decency. There are other movies, but Aladdin is one that I remember specifically. Aladdin is about, the magic lamp, right? Aladdin has the genie and all that stuff. I haven't watched the old Aladdin that is specifically talking about, so I may contemplate doing that at some point. But it did mention, I think Aladdin, one of the moral faults in that Aladdin movie was like indecent attire for women or something like that. So I really don't want to see that filth anyway, so I may not even look at that. But my point is, Aladdin, which, if I'm understanding correctly, is the same story about the magic lamp and all of that. That movie was not condemned by the Legion of Decency. So a Catholic is not forbidden to watch Aladdin, at least that Aladdin, you know? But what I'm saying is, if the person who made that video saying that a Catholic can't watch a fairy story or shouldn't like a fairy story or whatever, if they had seen the Legion of Decency and respected the authority of the Legion of Decency, perhaps they would not make that statement. Because what a Catholic is allowed to watch and all that kind of stuff is not as simple of a question as one may think. Because the Legion of Decency wasn't just like, okay, if it's not a Catholic show, it's condemned. You know? There's one bad word, no one can watch that movie. The Legion of Decency didn't act that way. And so that's why I personally try to be very cautious in what I say is condemned or a Catholic can't watch and that kind of stuff, because the Legion of Decency was not as simplistic regarding that question as a lot of people like this guy I'm talking about that seems to be associated with the Diamond Brothers make it seem like. You understand? So yeah, it's a much more complicated question than they make it seem to be. But yeah, so overall, I was just very disappointed that in that Facebook group, no one mentioned these things, and they should have been mentioned right away by somebody. And even the guy associated with Diamond Brothers, as far as I can tell, didn't mention it either. You know, and the Legion of Decency is a very important thing regarding Catholic morality today, especially with regards to media, movies, TV shows, etc. So, yes.